And there we are live. Hello. Today I'm talking with Dee. She's a fellow coach and does a lot of interesting things. And I again forgot to introduce myself. I'm Diana. I'm an insight coach and these days also a positive intelligence coach. And yeah, we're just going to have a conversation about coaching. Will you introduce yourself a little?
Yeah, sure. So yeah, I'm Dee. I am a mindset coach for mums. I'm based in Sydney in Australia. So it's getting on in the evening here. And I'm from New Zealand originally, but I've lived in Australia for about 20 years. I need to make the distinction between being an Aussie and a Kiwi. But yeah, I've been coaching for about 18 months now. And mums are my jam. I think, I'm a mum myself, and I went through a bit of a stage of, with my first child, I was working full time when he was one. So we get 12 months maternity leave here. It's not nice. Paid, but I'm getting 12 months off. When he was 11 months old, I went back to work, and I went back to work full time. And then about 3.5 years later, I had my second child, and I decided that full-time was not going to work with two because my oldest one was about to start school. So I had the 12 months off again with my second one and went back to work part-time and lasted at that for about 2.5 years, and then decided that everything was just not really working for me. And so I actually decided to stop working altogether, which was a tough decision because I absolutely loved my job. I had kind of found a role that really vibed with me. I was working for a travel company. I'd worked for this travel company for about 17 years, and I had moved into a training and development role. So I was looking after brand new staff members that came into the company, and I just loved the training and the nurturing. And I did, I call it more mentoring. There were coaching elements to it, but after having studied coaching and what I know about coaching now, I was in more of a mentor role in that job, and I loved it. So I went, once I finished working completely and sort of made that decision, I went through a big time of transition and struggled. I struggled a lot. I think I was older, having kids as well. I was sort of in my mid to late 30s. So I had a fantastic career, which I loved doing. And I struggled with feeling like I wasn't really good at the job of being a mum, and I wanted more than that. And so I did a lot of soul searching and looked at, what my strengths were, what I loved doing, which I kind of knew. I already knew what I loved doing from my previous role. And I had been studying counselling at some point anyway, and kind of put that on hold with the kids. And decided counselling wasn't kind of the direction I wanted to go in. I wanted to be a lot more forward focused as opposed to dealing with the past. And I knew about coaching. I knew we'd sort of had training on aspects of it in my previous role. And I decided that being a full-time mum wasn't going to be my jam, and decided to study to become a coach. And it was great. It's hands down the best thing that I ever did. I absolutely loved the study. And while I was studying, I just kept going, this isn't it? This is it. This is my thing. So at the end of it, I decided, because I had thought about maybe going to business coaching a little bit, because I had a sales background, retail training background, but I wanted to help women like me. And I think that tends to be kind of where you're drawn to. You have a soft spot for people who were in a position that you were in. And I knew how I had felt kind of going through that time. And I knew that I could help mums who had been in that space as well. So that's what I do now. And I love it. That's good. It's awesome.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's quite interesting because I did a similar journey. So after my first child, I started working part-time, kept doing that after the second, but after the third, I had this thing, this is not working. There's so much that I need to do. I just didn't have the time to continue doing it. And before the first, I was working full time. So it's just, I see a lot of mothers do that. It's one of those things that
Yeah.
life seems to throw at us.
Yes. And I think, I think inside, when you're sort of in the midst of motherhood, my kids are a bit older now. I've got a 10-year-old and a 7-year-old. So they're at school when we're not in lockdown and homeschooling. But they're at school. And so, you sort of have time to reflect on spaces you're in. And I think when your kids are small and you're kind of going through that baby stage, and I mean, that's just like a haze because you're sleep deprived and no idea what's going on. And then you move into the toddler stage, and there's a lot of development and movement. And it's like, it's almost like, if you looked at it like a job role, it's like you've been given a new job.
Yeah.
You have not been given any training or induction into this new role. Yeah. And then the job description keeps changing every few months.
Yeah. Sometimes daily.
And you've got no idea what's going on.
Yeah.
And I think for a lot of women, because, there's this undercurrent that we don't realize because we don't have the opportunity to actually step back and have a look. But it's almost like your self-confidence is slowly being chipped away, and your self-esteem is slowly being chipped away at. And, just these little things are happening underneath.
Yeah.
And then the women that I work with are at the stage where their kids are getting close to being at school. Like the youngest one is maybe a year or 2 years away from starting school, and they have time to sort of come up for air and have a bit of a look around. Yeah. And they just go, I don't know what to do. Like, I don't know what I do now. Like, I don't know, do I go back to my career, but I've been out of it for a while. And it's like all these, this kind of lack of self-confidence, lack of self-belief, when you've been in the midst of looking after babies and toddlers and had no idea what you're doing. It's kind of like that takes its toll on you.
Yeah. You're kind of owned by the kids instead of that you own your own body for a while.
Absolutely. Yeah. And some of the women that I work with, it's really interesting to see when they start, especially when we first start working together and they start talking, and they don't hear the way they speak about themselves.
Yeah.
And I asked them what they did before they have kids, and they sort of talk about this life that seems like it was so long ago, and it's a life that isn't something that they can even get parts of it back.
No, it's hard.
And I think that's why they feel so lost.
Yeah. I've seen that with friends, that they end up having this thing, I want to do something, but what am I going to do? And how am I going to do it? How am I going to fit it in with school and clubs and everything? So some end up working from home, others end up working part-time, and then quite a few I've actually seen that they end up working in the school system because that kind of is easy to fit in them.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's, it's that sort of transition period to, get to know yourself, who you are now. Yeah. And I think also coming to terms with the fact that it's okay to not be who you were before, because that was a stage in your life like every other stage you had. Yeah. And now you're in this phase of your life. And so it's just a matter of getting to know who you are now, and tapping back into what interests you, and sort of, I guess, understanding that you as a person can run parallel to you as a mum, and you can kind of go on that journey together. So it's great. I love it when, these sort of little light bulb moments start to go on.
Yeah, and they're the best.
Yeah, they get excited. I had a client that I worked with who had a failed online clothing business. So that really knocked her confidence as well. And she's like, I just don't know what to do. So we looked at, all the different things that she was interested in, and she ended up studying to become a sleep consultant for mums with newborn
That is
babies
cool.
who didn't know how to get their babies to sleep. And now she runs a thriving business and she loves it. And, you know, it's great to see. I love seeing stories like that sort of come to life.
Yeah.
It's just,
I've seen exciting. I've seen quite a few women do quite a few different things. What I also always find fascinating is that when we look back over the last 10 years, we see all the changes. But frequently when we look forward, we expect to stay exactly as we are, which won't happen. And that's because we can't see the future, obviously we can't, but knowing that we keep changing every couple of years, actually every day kind of, but it becomes more obvious when you look back a few years, then we can know that we will definitely change and things will, as in this too shall pass. But it's frequently we feel that we're stuck in that.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's I think it's really important to take the time to reflect and look back.
It is. Yeah.
And I love, there's quotes out there that I've seen, and I can't remember it word for word, but it's about sort of have a look at where you are now, and your past self would be so proud of how far you've come, because that past self never thought that you'd get to where you are now. So actually giving yourself credit for how far you've come and what you've done.
Yeah, that's something that I tend to try to go through with clients as well, that they look back as what they've all achieved, because frequently people have gone through quite a lot of stuff already, and they can definitely be really proud of that they've made it this far, because some things are really rough that they've gone through, and then thinking that the small things that they have ahead of them now they can't do, but what they've done is like 20, 30 times worse than what they're actually facing. But made it this far, you can make it a bit further.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it's just about, I think sometimes it's about pulling it back in and just doing that one step, just looking at what's that next step. And then, I often use the analogy about, like if you're running a flight of stairs, you got to do your exercise, you got to run the flight of stairs. Like if you're at the bottom and you look at the top and you just think, oh my God, I'm going to run those like 60 stairs or whatever it is. But if you just start, you just start and you just look at one step at a time, and that's your focus, you get to the top and you think, oh, that wasn't so bad. Probably turn around and do it again.
I use that usually as well, because, what we do, like even driving somewhere, when you start driving, I just get in my car first and then start the engine, and then I roll further and further and further. But I'm not looking literally at the destination where I need to go, because I'll get there eventually. It's just, checking the traffic, making sure everything goes smooth. So it's like, all of these things. You start here, you just take one step at a time, or whatever it is. Small things, small things.
That's right.
Don't
and I
immediately
think sometimes, no, that's right. And our kids are a good reflection of that too. I think sometimes when we feel like we can't do things or things are too much, and they think, well, look at what the kids are learning all the time. And, something you take for granted. I mean, even learning how to walk, and I use this with my kids too, when things are really difficult. I was like, well, you learned to walk. Like, that's awesome. If you didn't try and you didn't, I've got videos of one of my little ones, and he's just like on his hands and knees, just like rocking back and forwards, and he knows he's supposed to go somewhere. Like, he has this feeling that there should be more to it than just this weird rocking. And then eventually he actually learns to put a hand and then his knees, and he starts crawling. And so I think those little examples just to pull us back to a bit of reality.
I had that when my granddaughter started walking. That was such a light bulb moment, as in, she falls over, she gets up again, she falls over, she gets up again. Because I've had these moments where I thought, I can't do this went wrong, so why would I even consider trying again? But when you see how learning to crawl and how learning to walk is constantly not thinking you're a failure or anything, just keep going, keep trying until you master it. And that's kind of how things work in life. Because when I started out in my career as a secretary, there was no way I was doing everything the way I was supposed to, because I'd just been to school and just learned it. But then later, by the time I left, I was actually really good at it. So that's with everything. Nothing, you can't be an expert the moment you start. It just doesn't work that way. But it's what we frequently experience.
No, that's right. And I don't think you'd be as, as successful as what you are if you didn't have the failures. Because I think if you don't know what it's like to not be able to do something because you've got to work at it and you've kind of got to grow and learn and test things out, then once you get to the place where you're really comfortable, it feels good. And I think if you were good at things like straight away, that kind of takes away from the greatness of what it is you've achieved.
Yeah, the journey's frequently also just really interesting.
Yeah,
you learn so much during that journey. And I think life is like that, because life is kind of a journey. And I feel that with, things like personal development and coaching, it means that every day you go on that journey, and it's a journey that just doesn't end. And I actually really like that, because a while ago I had this thing of, but I want to be at the end, but then what's the end? What's the destination? I actually didn't know what the destination would be. So then I got some peace with the idea of this is an ongoing journey, and actually I really like it. So,
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Because sometimes the turns it takes is different to what you expected, and you discover whole new things.
Yeah.
I know that if I had have pushed on through with my job as much as I loved what I was doing, but if I had have kind of because I had to weigh up, I had to decide, do I want to stop altogether and be a mum full time and give up the job I love, or do I persist and kind of, even I'm feeling pulled and I'm feeling like it's not working, but I want the both. So do I push that and make it happen? Like if I'd done that, I wouldn't have ended up where I am. And I know that I'm in the right place now.
Yeah.
So, but obviously at the time I didn't know that this is where I was going to end up. But sometimes you've just got to take that leap of faith and go with your gut. I think, I think the world is so busy now that we just forget to take time to stop and listen to our instincts and listen to our intuition. And that's becoming, I think, quite a big focus now. You see, I see a lot of people talking about just listening to your gut instinct. And we're learning more about how the gut and the emotions are actually all intertwined. And, I think in the health, we're learning more about how, stress, how that presents itself in the body. And it's all, the holistic side is becoming more and more understood. And it's like we've evolved so much, but we're now realizing that we've got to pull it back to sort of, how we were before. Simplicity, because that's that actually serves us really well.
It does indeed. It's quite I like learning about how the brain works and how that then interacts with the body, and how thoughts create feelings, and that you don't have to take those thoughts serious and then the feelings will change, and all these things. It just fascinates me. Totally fascinates me. Just sitting there, having a thought pass by. Because one of the people that I read some stuff about wrote at some point, make sure the front door is open so that the thought can come in, but make sure the back door is also open so that it can go out again. And I thought that's really a funny way of looking at it. Just let it pass by and watch it. Yeah, it was nice.
Yes. I think it's coming from that place of just curiosity. And not having to take hold of everything. Like you say, just let it float on by, make observations, be curious, and then just, if it doesn't serve you, just let it drift on out. And thank you, and away you go.
Onwards. I find those kind of things really nice to just learn about, and then also integrate it more into my being, so that because there were times where I would take every thought super serious, no matter how grim they were. But these days I just think, interesting, moving on. And that's it.
And that's a real skill to be able to do that. I think it's, it takes time. I was thinking about something the other day with my business,
Mm-hmm.
and a deadline I'd set for something, and because we're in lockdown here, we've been in lockdown for, I don't know, 14 weeks or something.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been homeschooling, and everything's different.
Yeah.
And I suddenly realized, and sometimes you don't realize things until you realize something. And I realized that something to do with work was starting to sort of stress me out a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, who's put this deadline on you? Like, you've put this deadline on yourself. Like, if it's not working, you can change it.
Yeah.
And I was like, right, I'm changing that.
Yeah. Just take it up with the management.
Absolutely. Yes. And, once I realized, and then I made the decision,
Mm-hmm.
and I actioned that decision, I was like, oh, right. And that actually, changed my whole attitude. And then the kids weren't as annoying as what they were before, because I had made that switch. And, I think I used to be worried when I was coaching that I needed to be a perfect coach. My life had to be perfect, because I was coaching women who
Mm-hmm.
had, who were probably a year or so behind where I had been. So
Yeah.
I needed to be this role model. And I thought, but that's not life. Like, life is always about things come up. You're always learning, you're always growing.
Mm-hmm.
And you do need to catch yourself and go, hey,
Yeah.
just have a step back and have a look what's going on. And if you're putting this pressure on yourself, and I think as women, we do it a lot, and particularly when you become a mum, because there's just so, as soon as you get pregnant, there's all this information comes at you, and
Yeah.
really meaningfully, people try to be helpful or give you suggestions, but it's a barrage of stuff, and you feel like you're not living up to it right from the very beginning.
It's
And I
also
think,
contradictory very often, so you can't live up to it, no matter how much you would want to.
no, absolutely, and you don't even need to, but you feel like you do. And so there's always this, there's just, you put judgment onto yourself, and you compare right from the beginning.
Yeah.
And I think, it's, you can get really caught in that trap. And even though you become aware of it, like, I'm very aware of the stuff in my life now, but I have moments like that, I put this expectation on myself, and I think, why? Like, it's just, if it doesn't serve you, then take a look at it. You can change things. Take a look at it. It's not working. What do you need to do to make a change? And, how is that going to better serve you?
Yep. And on that note, because I actually like that one, just look at it and see how you can change things so that it better serves you. Shall we wrap it up a little? I think we've been talking for a good 20 minutes now.
Oh, gosh, yes. Yeah.
Which has been really nice.
I get carried away. I get excited.
No, that's good. It's just good, because that makes these conversations so much more fun when it's fun and enjoyable and we get carried away. So it was a really good, I really enjoyed talking about what you do. And I hope it will help those who were watching it.
Thank you.
And if are there ways that people can contact you after watching it? Yes.
So I have a website, which is deemaisey.com. So DEEMAISEY.com.
I'll put it with the text.
Lovely. Cool. And I'm on Instagram. That's where I'm sort of most active, which is D_Maisey_coach. So I'm on there as well.
Okay.
And I also have a Facebook group, actually. I have a Facebook group called Mums Who Thrive.
Cool. I'll put that in the text with it. Awesome. Right. Then thank you very much for joining me today.
Lovely to be here.
Great. Until some other time. Right. Bye, everyone.